Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, the food delivery firm Deliveroo has told couriers they can opt out of a new payment system which prompted protests by workers who claimed it would mean less money and more insecurity. However, this programme has seen an earlier email to staff suggesting that if they didn't like it, they could leave or move to a less lucrative delivery area. The standoff raises the issue of regulation and protection for such jobs, part of what's known now as the gig economy. It's meant to be the ultimate in flexible working, but as Simeon Brown reports, it's uncharted territory.
This is work for the riders of tech courier company Deliveroo. But today they're not off to a delivery. They're heading to a picket line as they continue their protest over pay and the changing nature of work.
Work, 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 work. You see me heavy work, 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 work. You see me do me dirt, 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 dirt. So me better work, 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 work.
Now to do this kind of work, all you need is a bike and a smartphone, and you're in business. But these workers do not feel like businessmen. They feel like workers, but without any of the rights. They don't get sick pay or holiday pay because their contracts say they are self-employed. Now Deliveroo is trialling scrapping their hourly wage of £7 to replace with a flat fee of £3.75 per delivery. Leading the protest is Red Ben.
I haven't worked since last Tuesday.
Do you think that what you're doing now is going to hurt the company? But if you hurt the company, doesn't that ultimately hurt workers?
The company is already hurting workers, yeah? We're talking about the long term. People are struggling in the work that they're doing. They're going to be struggling even more with this new pay system. So it's not just about thinking about the short term, it's thinking about the long term, yeah?
Deliveroo have said that the drivers in dispute can stay on the old contract if they want to, but there is some small print. Riders had received emails that told them,
while you are not obliged to sign this updated fee document, it is a compulsory requirement for all riders in your area who wish to continue working as suppliers with Deliveroo.
Some workers were later told that you can remain on the old model, but in a non-trial area, which suggests they'd have to change patch. In response, Deliveroo said this today.
This will clearly work better for those who deliver 3 or more deliveries per hour. They can then try it out and go with that if it works, or go back to the pounds per hour approach if it doesn't, or their circumstances change. It's all about giving them flexibility, which is what they tell us is most important to them.
But will workers be better off? One employee gave us their payslip. It says he worked 98.8 hours in 2 weeks and made 243 deliveries. On the current deal, he took home £934.60 before petrol and tips. That's £9.46 an hour plus tips. On the new scheme of £3.75 per delivery but no hourly base wage, he would have earned about £23.35 less, which over a year is a loss of £607.10. That's a significant saving for Deliveroo if multiplied across their workforce. After raising £200 million in additional investment, the concerns for their couriers is that if the number of deliveries falls, so will their earnings, in an industry where they are often low paid.
One of the challenges is to make sure there's not aggressive wage inflation when this sort of thing happens. A bit like the Premiership football, you know, when a lot of money comes in, wages go up. And the same can happen with key roles like the tech developers in particular, and marketing staff and sales staff. That's less applicable for people like the delivery couriers, and that's why some of those guys get exploited a bit more.
But it's not only couriers. Today, Sports Direct agreed to reimburse workers £1 million for not paying them the minimum wage, as Labour criticised the government for cuts to their employment watchdog. So as the labour market becomes more precarious, who protects those on low pay?
Well, the challenges posed by the gig economy raise some fundamental issues about the modern way of work. And with me now is Kate Andrews from the Institute of Economic Affairs and Faiza Shaheen from the Centre for Labour and Social Studies. Kate Andrews, what is the gig economy to you and who's it good for?
It's best for those who are young, who don't have a high income, people who really need to lower their cost of living. One of the best things that the sharing economy has done, which is basically this technological innovation where we are able to use things like transport or accommodation at the ease of typing it into our phone or getting it through the internet. It's really allowed people who have those lower incomes to be able to have things that they couldn't have even just a few years ago. Imagine a young person or a low-paid person jumping into a black cab a few years ago. The price might have been astronomical for them, but now we have something that in many cases has done more than cut the price in half. It's created thousands and thousands of jobs, and on the whole, I think it's been a real benefit to lower that cost of living.
Faiza Shaheen, at what cost?
Yeah, and actually, so you've spoken about the consumer and the demand side. I think when you think about the workers and the way that they've been exploited, so often Uber, Deliveroo, and we see this time and time again, a growing trend in the economy. These workers effectively don't know how much they're going to be paid. We talk about low-paid people in the economy. These are often low-paid workers. They are seeing their rights taken away, and that's why they're so angry right now. This is the type of economy that doesn't work for individuals and actually shoots the economy in the foot more broadly, because we have more debt in the economy because people can't make ends meet.
Kate Andrews?
Well, I think using the word exploited is very important when we're actually talking about workers that have been exploited, which is why it's such an over-exaggeration in this case. People are choosing to work more flexible hours. I cannot say that a student who's making some extra money by driving an Uber is being exploited.
I mean, they don't actually have a choice, do they? I mean,
it's
not like they're choosing flexible hours over inflexible hours. Well, that's the only job that's on offer.
Of course that's not true. People can work 9 to 5 driving an Uber if they want to, but the wonderful thing about Uber for the worker is that they're able to go out at surge hours, so that they're earning more. They can choose to do it when they're not working in a different job. I mean, there is that real flexibility. I agree with you that we have an issue with employment rights at the moment. We're in this gray area. It used to be you worked for a company or you were self-employed, and now we're in this gray area. But I think companies like Deliveroo are actually being more progressive. They're actually addressing what their employees want and bringing it to them.
There's a lot of PR around this. You're talking about students. Students are a tiny percentage of the workforce. We're talking like 10 to 15%. Let's talk about everyone else, right? Let's focus on those people. Why is it that more and more families are finding themselves in poverty even though they're working? Why is it that we are having these shortfalls in pensions? Why is it that we have this, this ticking time bomb under the economy because of household debt? And it's very much because of these types of businesses and the way they treat workers. So let's be very clear about the impact, the harmful impact that that's having on the economy.
But isn't it true that as consumers, we have bought into this model? We like the cheap prices.
Of course.
We don't disapprove so much that we don't want to use these services.
Actually, there is some research now to show that when people find out that these drivers are being mistreated, that Deliveroo, essentially that this is not a big difference in price.
Deliveroo is currently paying their average employee £2 more than the minimum wage here in London.
Self-employment, average self-employment income is half that which salaried workers.
You're looking at manipulated statistics that often bring part-time workers into full-time employment workers. And they look at those numbers and they compare them equally, and that's just not the case with these companies. I cannot criticize companies that are not only lowering the cost for people out there who are on low incomes, but also creating thousands and thousands of jobs. I agree with you that the cost of living is a huge issue. And I also agree that we need more full-time jobs if people want those jobs. The government needs to step up to the plate, boost economic growth, so we can have more of those jobs.
But there's a lot of spin around this as well, though, isn't there? I mean, this is often referred to as the sharing economy. There's nothing sharing about it, is there?
Well, people are using their goods and services to make money in a way that 3 or 4 years ago they couldn't have done. Imagine 3 or 4 years ago you using your personal car to make an income. That's an amazing opportunity for many people out there.
But who has... I mean, look, Uber drivers, let's be reality again, right? They're not using their personal car, they're leasing, and they are paying higher interest rates often. They are effectively seeing that money cut away. They're seeing the money cut away from Uber. They don't know, they don't have any control. There's so much PR here about empowerment and control. They have no control and empowerment over the price. Uber sets the price. So let's be very clear here about what's right and what's not right. Of course, we don't argue about entrepreneurs in the economy. We want more self-employment.
This is a real fallacy.
But this is a kind of ugly self-employment that is no good for us.
Last word, Kate Andrews.
This is a real fallacy here. The reason that we are going against this is because it's something the government hasn't been able to regulate yet. Thousands of jobs are being created by technology. That can only be a good thing.
We must leave it there. Kate Andrews, Faiza Shaheen, thank you both.
Thank you.
I've been getting away with it all.